Welcome to the Elite Power Moves podcast, where we unlock the secrets to level up in all areas of life. I'll be interviewing some of the world's top performers in their fields so that you can uncover and learn the strategies that have led to their overall success and apply it to your own life. Morello, welcome to the Elite Power Moves podcast, mate. Interviewing the top performers in their field. Thank you so much for your time today, mate. Really appreciate you turning up.
Thank you for having me, Michael. It's an honor and a privilege. Obviously, got a chance to meet you live and in person, so we're on the big screen this time.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm looking forward to asking the questions that everyone wants to know about Morello.
Yeah, great.
First one, mate, you've lived a remarkable entrepreneurial journey from winning the Apprentice, the Australian Apprentice, to working at Yellow Brick Road with, obviously, Mark Bouris. Now you're working at the Entourage. What inner drive or mindset has stayed consistent through these chapters of your success?
Yeah, look, what I've tried to do with any project I've been a part of, whether it was, Yellow Brick Road with Mark Bouris or some of the property entrepreneurial work that I've done, obviously, down in Melbourne over the years, and even in my original illustrious property career where I, did over 1,000 property transactions, I've always tried to sort of just practice present moment awareness, and really just enthrall myself into that project or that journey that I'm working on at the time. The second thing I try and do also as well is I try and let go of the outcome. I think, I see a lot of people getting into the real estate game and they go, "Oh, Morello, can I pick your brain on something?" Or I see people getting into particular industries and they go, "I'd love to just have a coffee with you for half an hour." And I feel like sometimes they put too much pressure on themselves and they put so much emphasis on the outcome that when they don't achieve it, they disappoint themselves. And that's where they lose their opportunity to be resilient.
Yeah, it's a very common trait because I find that a lot of high achievers do procrastinate a lot. They overthink,
Yeah.
and I find the top performers, which I already know about you, firstly, they just shot call, take action. They're straight into it. But the other traits I see within you as well, which they love giving. They're always open to giving time to someone to help someone because they know that brings good energy back to them.
Well, Michael, I'll tell you a quick little funny story. Well, I spoke at AREC, the Australian Real Estate Agents Conference, many years ago, and I made the mistake in a room full of 4,000 very motivated real estate agents that had paid, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 grand to be there. I made the mistake and said, I'd give anyone 20 minutes of my time. I said, if somebody's prepared to come to my office and somebody's prepared to actually come and sit with me, I'll give anyone 20 minutes of my time. Little did I realize the next day, literally, I had about 600 emails reached out to me going, "Oh, you said that you'd give anyone 20 minutes of your time." So funnily enough, my assistant at the time, my business manager, Simone Pack, and I still remember, because I was at Yellow Brick Road at this point, she actually had to start grouping them. So she'd basically book out the boardroom at lunchtimes and the Yellow Brick Road boardroom where Mark Bouris and I would have the board meetings. And we ended up having like 10 people in there because, as you said, it is a trait. I think the more successful you are, the more you want to help other people. And I think your success is very much tied in, spiritually, emotionally, energetically, from being selfless and always wanting to give to other people. And the law of reciprocation, which I know you believe in a lot of this stuff as well, and I'm sure your listeners do. So I was always just trying to give so much value to people where I sort of stuffed up and I went, I'll give anyone 20 minutes of my time. And 650 people reached out the next day and said, let's do it. So it took me about 3 months, but I got through it. So, which was good. And Michael, just on what you were saying before too, the last thing I probably want to touch on too is I talked about practicing present moment awareness, letting go of the outcome. But I think importantly as well, embracing the uncertainty of it. You look at being entrepreneurial and investing in companies and doing stuff with, in financial services, property, and business education and coaching. I look at all those different, they're all very different. So you need to obviously mentally and emotionally embrace that uncertainty if you want to sort of elevate to the next level.
Yeah, it's definitely the part of peak performance, isn't it? And I wanted to go back to what you said about giving all those people your time. And there's the quote, the cave we fear to enter holds the treasure we seek.
Very, very wise. I like that.
And most people they don't want to give their time out because they're trapped in that busyness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the people that give their time out and open doors,
Yes.
there's going to be new opportunities there. I personally did about 400 free health checks when I
Yes.
first started, and all I asked was a LinkedIn recommendation.
Yes.
and it just opened doors to bigger names that joined. But yeah, I'm a big fan of obviously your mindset and the spirituality side of you as well.
Yes.
Morello, you often speak about entrepreneurial heresy, from technician to managing and leading entrepreneurial teams.
Yes.
Um, when do most people get stuck in the climb up that mountain that you were talking about before? And what habits and mindset shifts separate the leaders from the ones who are busy to the ones who operate with peak performance?
Yeah, a great question, Michael, and it's something we're very passionate about at the Entourage. Is taking people on that entrepreneurial journey and that entrepreneurial hierarchy. I like to call it the four hats. I grew up in Moonee Ponds. I'm pretty simple, so I like to just simplify things. And I think, when we meet a lot of business owners when they come to the Entourage, a lot of them are sitting very heavily from a percentage point of view in technician and manager. There's nothing wrong with continuing to have some sort of connection with being a technician. So I get like the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker who loves, baking bread, who loves, being a butcher, who loves being a candlestick maker, which is great. And we don't want to take that away from them. Is it their highest and best use? No, that's the reality. So what we try and do is remove those bottlenecks. There's two pieces of advice I'll give people when going from technician to manager, manager to leader, leader to entrepreneur, where I see the bottlenecks. Number one, it ironically can be ego. So some people they're like, well, and when I say ego, not in a negative way, it's like, well, I'm the best salesperson, so I'm just going to keep doing sales. But I'm like, well, that you're going to get stuck in being a technician if you're just going to sell your own product. A great leader and a great entrepreneur builds a sales process that is teachable. So then you can teach 5 other people. And are they going to do it exactly how you do it? Are they going to do it 10 out of 10 like you believe you do? Probably not. But if they tick 7 or 8 boxes out of 10, or if they're a 7 out of 10, help them get to an 8 out of 10 through coaching and leadership. If they're an 8 out of 10, try and get them to an 8.5 out of 10. If they're a 9 out of 10, try and get them to 9.5. The reality is that the business isn't scalable if your ego gets in the way and you think that you're the only person who can make the magic happen. And on the flip side of that, the other big bottleneck, Michael, and you would see this with the mindset stuff that you work on with people, is I've got people that walk in the door doing $30 million in revenue who have massive imposter syndrome. They don't actually believe they're an entrepreneur. Like they're like, oh, I don't know if I belong at the Entourage or belong at being a member, or I don't really want to come to the mastermind day because I'm going to be in a group and there might be people that have got a $20 million business, but I've only got a $1 million business, or there might be people who've got a $50 million business, but I've only got a $2 million business. And I say, it's relevant. Keeping in mind, the guy who owns, the man or woman who owns the $50 million business, once upon a time had a $1 million business, right? So you need to get that mindset block, which is that imposter syndrome that we're all guilty of. I still feel it sometimes. I get to spend time with John McGrath and Mark Bouris and Jerry Harvey. And when I spend time with them, I think, what the hell am I doing in a room with these guys? But then I go, no, I belong here and I deserve to be here. And how I know that is they're the first people to ask for your feedback. I remember getting off stage with Mark Bouris many a time, and get off stage and go, what did you think? What did I do good? What didn't I do good? He was always looking for feedback. And so I look at that and go, well, they must respect you if they're coming to you asking for questions and asking for your feedback as well. So they're the two bottlenecks going from technician to manager, manager to leader, leader to entrepreneur in that entrepreneurial hierarchy. Number one is remove your ego. You're not the only person who can sell. You're not the only person who can manage, and you're not the only person who can lead. Number two, get rid of that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it's a common trait. It really is. I've actually worked with someone who has a $75 million company, and he was doing checking off certain invoices and stuff that his accountant could do. And I asked why he does that on his calendar, because he didn't have time to do stuff. And he said, well, it's what I did. It's what I did to be successful. It's part of the habit that I have in it. And it really does come down to ego, but also our behavioral system, our identity, our habits. Because as we scale, we need to shift the identity to, all right, that person is not going to do it 100% like me.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the 80%. You know what I mean? I'm a big fan of the 10-80-10 principle, where you're a leader. You've got to design the roadmap. Be very clear. And if you're clear in your thinking, you're clear in your clarity, and you're clear on your direction, you're almost like a a storyteller. You're telling saying, this is what I want to create. This is the destination. Like, we're climbing Mount Everest, 200 steps a day, team. This is where we're going to be in this quarter. And then the 80%, the team goes and does it. They work, they build it together.
Yeah.
And then obviously you can come in for that last 10% and just put your finishing touches. So it's literally 80% of the work wasn't done by you, but it's 100% done.
Yes.
And I think that, as you know, with me, time is our most valuable resource. Like, if we're looking at our calendars and we're not assessing our calendars and going, what the hell, like, am I doing here? Where am I wasting time? Where are the time gaps? And not actually having systems to SOP things out that you can hand over, then you're stuck,
Yeah.
A follow-up question for that, Morello, for a leader listening right now, what's one small daily action they could take to operate more like an entrepreneur and less like a technician?
Well, I feel like you touched on it straight away there. Like, as you said it, I was about to bring this up, that but one of the first things we actually get new members at the Entourage to do is to spend 1 week documenting every activity that they do, right? And then what we do is we sit down with the coach after that week, and or with me or with somebody, and we actually review what are the dollar productive activities, what are the non-dollar productive activities, what are the things that only Michael can do versus what are the things that Michael can get someone else to do. And the irony is, like, when you start to have that self-awareness, it becomes a snowball effect, which is really, really good. Look, my brother, John Morello, who's very successful in the property world, and some people watching might know of him down in Melbourne, Charles Craig Real Estate. He's had an illustrious career. He always makes a bit of a joke, but I'm proud of it, but he always takes the piss out of me a little bit. And he goes, mate, you're the best delegator in the world. I give you a job, or you need to get something done for when my mum was unwell, or my dad's just recently been in hospital. And he goes, somehow you got someone else to do it. And I said, well, of course, John, like, I agree that, like, going to pick up dad's medication is not dollar productive for me. So I will get somebody that works for me or helps me with things to go and do that. And he's like, some girl just dropped off dad's medication to him. I'm like, yeah, that's Danielle. And he's like, who's Danielle? The girl I delegated it to, right? So my brother takes the piece, and he always says, you're the best delegator I've ever seen. You always get someone else to do everything for you. And I said, well, the reality is that Andrew Morello wants to make lots and lots of money to pay other people really, really well to do the things he doesn't want to do, so he can do more things he loves doing with the people that he loves.
I love your memes. I love that.
Yeah. So like for me, I'd rather go and sit there with a whiskey watching the Formula One Grand Prix with my father than going and pick up these tablets when it's not even it's not a connecting or nourishing thing to do.
Yeah, it's just important. It's one of those key things that you need to do to scale. Like, you really need to just identify things. I talked to Justine at the Elite Performance Series, and she wanted us to come in and pack the packs. And I said, we can pay someone $20 to do that.
Yeah.
We can keep our energy, so we can put more energy back into the event.
Correct.
And
those people that we did pay were fantastic. They were lovely. She ended up sticking around later on. She came in the day before. Like, I ended up having a great conversation with her too, right? So it was a good opportunity to meet beautiful people. And just the last thing I'll say on that, Michael, just before I lose that train of thought, I always used to say to my brother when we're doing listing and selling real estate together, I used to say, John, because he'd tell me off for delegating. He goes, you need to go and do that. I'd say, John, you need to delegate to dominate. And I'd always say that to him. And I actually drilled it into, I feel like as he progressed in his career, and obviously he's now got quite a substantial business where he has, 60 plus staff working for him. So he has gotten better at it, but still it's one of his curses. Like, he feels like he's got to, have his name on the real estate board. I said, people don't expect that, mate. Like, they might contact you because they trust you, but then you need to then edify and elevate the people around you to actually explain to the person that you're taking care of that this person's actually very capable and able to do the job as well.
Yeah. When you look at the top performers in the world, like, literally you've got to go through their army to get to them. You know what I mean? Like, they've got those people set up, the EAs, they've got, like, unless you've got a good connection with them, you've got to obviously go through their channels to get to them, Like, personally, I don't like to have heaps of book calls on my calendar, like 15 minutes here and there, because it's gonna take my energy away from whatever I'm doing.
Yep.
But it is that's top value. Mate, the next question, Morello, performance is key to sustaining leadership. You've spent years in high pressure roles. How have you learned to manage your physical and mental energy, like to keep up and show up at the top level you do?
Yeah, so Michael, I'm not going to, I don't run marathons like a lot of other people do. I don't, I do go to the gym now, which is good. I actually have lost 14 kilos since February, but I'm probably not perfect when it comes to, fitness health. I do have a 4-year-old son now who can run 3 laps of a footy oval nonstop. So it's been a good motivation for me to drop those 14 kilos and hopefully another 10 or so. I've got myself a personal trainer down at the Rose Bay and we go down to Bondi and so forth as well. So I'm doing that. What I think I have mastered very well over the years though, is I try and give myself a mental, emotional, and physical big challenges. So like I've summited Mount Kinabalu in Borneo, right? So I might not go and run, I've got a mate who's just moved to Sydney who just gets up on a Tuesday morning and runs 18 kilometers for shits and giggles, right? And like I look at Adrian, he's like, mate, I'll take you out on the beach and we'll go run together. I said, I'm not going to do 18 kilometers. I'll go with him because I've known him for 25 years and it'll be great to connect with him. And now he's living in Sydney. We can spend more time together. So what I've tried to do is 2 things. One, I feel like I'm good at setting a big audacious goal. So Michael, great question. Like I'm not going to profess that I'm some, perfect picture of health and I'm the guy who goes and runs marathons all the time. I've got people here in the office that do that. They run marathons and triathlons and all that sort of jazz. What I've tried to do though is mentally, emotionally, and spiritually set some big audacious goals. So I've summited Mount Kinabalu in Borneo. I've done the Kokoda Trail in Papua New Guinea, 142 kilometers through the jungle where Australia fought Japan in World War II, which was not just a physical challenge, but a mental, emotional, spiritual, like if fully grown men crying 3 or 4 times a day, like the third day you're going up a mountain literally on that trajectory. But what I've tried to do recently in particular, I've gotten myself a personal trainer. I've dropped 14 kilos. The big motivation for me has been I've got a 4-year-old son who can do 3 laps of a footy oval nonstop. So I've got this idea in my head, well, I'm going to need to keep up with him, Lion Mane, Morello. Yes, his name's Lion Mane, guys. Lonmain. Everyone's like, did he really just call his son Lion Mane? That is his name on his birth certificate. And then the other thing I think what I have really done well, and I believe that when people get sick, I'm not saying all the time, but when people get sick, it's often a physiologicalization and manifestation of what's actually happening to them psychologically and emotionally. I know you believe in this stuff, but some people might be like, oh, that's not true. You see, you're saying someone gets cancer and they manifest it. I'm not necessarily saying they manifested it. My mum's dementia and Alzheimer's definitely, but like there's a direct correlation now in dementia and Alzheimer's around stored trauma. My mother had a very traumatic childhood when she came to Australia. Her mother died when she was 7. Her father died. He got buried alive building VFL Stadium down in Melbourne when she was 21. She ran away from home. She had a evil stepmother, and classic the story out of a nursery or out of a nursery rhyme. Met my father, her knight in shining armor. And then basically what happened was she had her 3 kids. I moved to Sydney. My sister moved to London. My brother got married and had his own wife and kids. All of a sudden, my mum's sitting at home waiting for my father to finish work every day. And that's when the dementia started to kick in, the calcification, right? Now, dementia is calcification and plaque on the brain. Now, there's the direct correlation there where her brain was always working because she was always active and she kept herself busy, but she hadn't dealt with that stored trauma. So at some point in your life, that generational trauma, that even past trauma, look, I don't want to go too woo-woo for people. There's things called past life regression. So, stored trauma for past lives, a lot of people believe in, that will eventually in some way, shape or form come out physically. So I do live a bit of a colorful life. I like to have a drink of whiskey. I like to go out on a Tuesday night till 2 a.m, but I'm in the office 6 a.m, 7 a.m. in the morning because mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I'm strong. Every day I meditate. Every day I pray. And when I say pray, I'm not saying I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. I take the ferry to get to the office because I like to sit on the water as a Piscean and connect with the water for 15 minutes and meditate around that. So I think I've really done really well with that in managing my stress, and that, sets you up for success for the day. So that way, when you get into the office or you got to go to do an appointment or get on stage in front of 4,000 people, you're mentally, emotionally, and spiritually strong.
Yeah, that's amazing routine. And look, like you don't have to be going to the gym and doing what everyone else does to have that physical and emotional, and most important, like you said, the spiritual energy. I know, Morello, my keynote got cut off, but I don't think you've seen my deck. I used to be 145 kilos myself. You know,
Yeah, you did mention to me, which I couldn't believe, by the way. So you look fantastic, which is
we all go through those journeys, and we have lifestyles that we want to live. But I feel like, as I said in my keynote, the thought energy that you have, the mental energy, the spiritual energy is our biggest form of energy, and that's going to sustain us. Morello, I've got a follow-up question for there, because I know you travel a lot. You're all over the world. And like, what's one non-negotiable routine that you would do to keep you sharp no matter where you are in the world?
Look, I pretty much without fail meditate every day. I went and completed a Vedic meditation course some many years ago, and I've done Tony Robbins, and I've done Deepak Chopra, and I've done Eckhart Tolle. I've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal and professional development. Now, a lot of people go, oh, I don't like meditating, or I don't like sitting there with my thoughts. It's my thoughts are too loud. And what I say to people is find what works for you. So what I've actually done now is I've found great meditations on YouTube. First of all, buy yourself, I'm not endorsed by YouTube, guys, but buy yourself YouTube Premium. 2 reasons. 1, no ads, because you don't want to be in the middle of a meditation and then an ad comes on. It completely ruins the meditation. I've actually been in offices before where I've said, let's do a meditation. I've used their YouTube on their computer, and then halfway through it, 10-minute meditation ad comes on. Number 2, if you buy Premium on your phone and you put a meditation on, you can actually lock your phone, so you can sleep. You can actually go to sleep listening to your meditation. So there's a couple of there's 2, and look, this might not be for everyone, but find the thing that's good for you. As you said before, some people go to the gym, some people swim each day, some people go and run soft sand running at 5 in the morning down at Bondi, which I would never do that, right? So you find your thing. So I listened to two pretty out there meditations and I suppose recorded messages from when they were alive in the 70s. So one of them is Alan Watts. He was probably one of the most modern philosophers of our time. So but very out there. During a period of time where there was, a lot of free thinking and free love, and they were sort of, that emerging hippie period in the 70s, but very, very good stuff that relates to us today. And especially after, now with AI and social media, he was a forward thinker. And the other one I really love is Ram Dass. So Ram Dass was a Jewish Harvard lecturer who got kicked out of Harvard for using LSD to do experiments on people's psychology and mindset and so forth. So he went, stuff it. He had all the money in the world. He had all the success in the world. He went over to India, and he basically became the conduit between the East and the West. So at the time, obviously we didn't have internet and things of that nature. So he would bring back meditations. But, if you tried to get a New York stockbroker to do a proper Vedic or Indian, temple meditation, you'd probably lose him completely. Like, he'd be like, oh, this is too much, that he's not interested. So what Ram Dass did is he basically built a Western version of it, that we could all relate to. And he talked about modern politics, and he talked about, how to deal with, divorce or if you're angry with your mother or angry with your parents, how best to approach that mentally, emotionally, spiritually, with forgiveness and things of that nature. He's not religious. So, he was brought up Jewish, but he now takes, scripture and learnings from all different facets, from spirituality, including Quran, Bible, Torah, whatever it might be. He takes little bits, but then he makes it relatable back to how we deal with it on a daily basis. And importantly, how we deal with stress, which is cortisol in our bodies as well.
I definitely love to listen to them for sure, because I'm right into that's the first anchor I do personally.
Have you ever listened to Alan Watts or Ram Dass?
I haven't. No.
Oh my God, Mike! I can't wait to get a text message. You especially, you and I cut from the same cloth, so you're gonna love Alan Watts and Ram Dass. Look, for those of you who haven't listened to it that maybe are a little bit more conservative, because I did get my brother to listen to it. My brother goes to church every Sunday. He's good, wholesome, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't take drugs, nothing. He's a very wholesome man, good family man. But I said to him, listen to some of this stuff. And like the challenge, I had to pull my brother up here because one of the challenges is that like he listened to it. The thing he pulled out of it was the stuff where those guys talk about, psychedelics and drug use, right? They didn't do it when they got older, but during the 70s, it was the 70s, right? So like I go to my brother, keep in mind that's what triggered the process. But for those of you who are going to try it for the first time, so Alan Watts and Ramdas, forget about that side of it. Go for the messaging behind it and the fact, and if you get through to their later works are really, really good because they take the crazy life that they lived and the learnings they got there, but then they find a way to get to those moments of elation and consciousness without needing to do that, right? So there's beautiful lessons in that because I think in business and in life, we stress out so much every day and we go, okay, but you remember when I went to that retreat in Byron, I wasn't stressed anymore. Use that as a memory anchor. So when you're stressed in the office, you can actually take your mind and your soul back to that memory anchor of peace and tranquility.
Yeah, I love that. Like, and we're very much the same because, like when I meditate, I think about like if there's anything going wrong in my life, or like I've got legal, I've got lawyers, I've got staff, I've got companies in the US and Australia, and like I just envision myself on this huge rock, this spinning around a boiling hot star.
Yeah,
like, and that little thought is really nothing, and that's where I like to use like visualization. And also the gratitude, like with meditation, because like it brings you closer to yourself. And
100%.
We all know, like in the future, like we're stepping into a game where our sons, Lion Main and Zane, hopefully they'll be good mates one day.
I'm looking forward to that.
They will be. They're full on. They're both full on. That's what I know they've got in common. But they've got a choice. They've got a choice between mindfulness or mindlessness. Yes. And we all have that choice as leaders. Like when we come into a busy emails or text messages and we're starting a day in like, the sympathetic nervous system instead of our parasympathetic nervous system and, not using our cortisol properly in the morning and I'm a huge fan of the mind, body and spirit, like your hormones, your clock timers, your thought patterns. And like you said before, the best anchors are going back to something that you've experienced before, because like, as we all know, we've got to grind. We've got to grind up the mountain where you can't make it to the top and do what Morello does without doing that. But you've got to have those anchors that obviously you have in your life.
Yeah, definitely. Look, one of the other ones, Michael, which I know that my friends that know me well and the team I have around me, they love that I do. I speak to my father every day. I used to talk to my mother every day, right? And I understand some people don't have great relationships with their parents, but I try and, or their parents may have been, challenging, maybe they weren't perfect, right? But who is perfect? But I was very, very lucky to have this amazing mom until towards the end when she forgot who I was. But what my dad doesn't realize he does, so when I ring him, he doesn't realize he's doing this, but for me, it actually recalibrates me. So you talk about like what's a daily non-negotiable, like just having that 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 minute chat with my dad, ask him how he's feeling, what did he do today? Oh, he did physio, or he went to the shops, no worries, or my sister came over. Like just getting him to just talk to me, it actually just recalibrates me. One, to remember the unconditional love that I got from my parents and from both my mother and father. Number 2, my father worked like 7 days a week, 15, 16, 17 hours. So we could have a better future, right? And so he set the foundation of hard work, good morals, ethics. And he's probably more of a conscious human being than he realizes. So like, he was never overly religious, but he took us to church. But I think it was just because, he thought he had to as a growing up Catholic. But he was actually a very conscious human being. Obviously, my father was a big point of nourishment for me because he worked 7 days a week, 15, 16, 17-hour days, and he was not necessarily a formally trained conscious human being, but he taught me consciousness. Like a prime example would be our mechanics, where like there was Muslims, there was Jehovah's Witness, there was Asian people, there was Indians, and my father said, You don't judge a man by the color of his skin or his religion. You judge him by how hard he works. Now, it was just a very, blazing thing for him to say. But what he was actually instilling in me was like hard work, ethics, and actually sharing, opportunities with everybody and being in a position where you can change the fate of other people's lives.
Yeah, and I think it's I'm a big fan, Morello, of generational like health or generational habits.
Yeah.
What your father did is part of you, and what you do is going to be part of Lion Main, and what I do is going to be part of Zane. Yeah. I always say, like, Zane can't speak properly yet, and I always say three things every day. I say I'm proud of him. I congratulate for how strong he is, and I say I'm so proud of how resilient you are. And then I stand on the veranda, look at the lake, and I get him to be present.
Amazing.
And stop there just for a sec, because like obviously you want to instill these habits that we get from our anchors, like it's part of the domino that falls from generation to generation.
Yeah, yeah. It was fun. Just one last little story in that. The other night, I got home quite late, and it was like 9:15, and my son should have been in bed, but he's a Morello and likes to just party. It was like a Tuesday, and I've been traveling. I was just in China and Taiwan and Macau and Hong Kong, so I hadn't really spent much time. I hadn't spent any time with him for about 3 weeks, right? So, and I'd been back a couple of days, and I got back, and I'd been in the office all day Monday or Monday night. Monday, Tuesday, and then I got home Tuesday night, and he said he wanted pancakes, right? And like most, the father in me felt like saying, go to bed. It's 9 o'clock at night. Why aren't you in bed? But then it reminded me of is my father. He would finish work at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night sometimes, right? And my mum would wait to have dinner with her husband. So my mum would cook us dinner, and we'd have dinner at like 6, 7 o'clock. My brother, my sister, and I. Then she'd wait to have dinner with her husband at 9:30, 10:30. And then my dad, you could see he was exhausted, mentally, emotionally, physically exhausted, right? 7 days a week on concrete, fixing cars, grease on his hands, smelt like two-stroke and petrol. I'm about to start crying with the thought of it. And he'd say, you know what? Everyone get out of bed. Let's go have pancakes at Pancake Parlor at High Point, right? And so the other day, when Lion said that to me, I was like, this was an opportunity for me to embody my father. So I actually called my dad and I said, you're not going to believe where we're going. We're going to have family malted milkshakes and pancakes at Pancake Parlor in the Rocks in Sydney, just like you used to do with me. And I think it was a real proud moment for my dad. Like, to see that was a tradition that we did with my mother. We've tried to keep it alive and bring that beautiful generational romance, let's call it, into the environment.
And they're the things that our kids remember. I
100%.
doing that with me as well.
There's 1,000 more days in his life that I can tell him to go to bed, right? So or 10,000 more days where I can tell him to go to bed. So I thought, you know what? This kid had no interest in going to bed at all. He was running around like a headless chook. I'm like, all right, let's go get pancakes. We all got in the car and it was just a beautiful moment. We rang Nono and I said, tell Nono where we're going. He goes, Nono, we're going for pancakes, Nono. And my dad, you could hear that, how proud he was in the back. I took some photos, put it on the group chat, and my dad's there 10 o'clock at night, writing back in the family group chat, looking at the photo, just like we used to. So, yeah, which is nice.
I guess when you look at a success for someone, like, high achieving, traveling, doing everything you're doing in the world and what you've achieved, like that is fulfillment as well, because and they're the anchors that we have to have as high achievers. We have to have that balance, like we need to be doing things that light up our spirit, Morello, you've obviously dedicated a lot of time and purpose to purpose-driven work, from Project Gen X to Seed Foundation. How's giving back to others contribute to your success and resilience as a leader?
Michael, philanthropy was a core value that we were brought up by our parents. So my mum used to volunteer at the church. She used to go and volunteer at the local council and pick up little old Italian ladies and take them to their doctor's appointments and translate and pick up their medication. At 15, I used to do St. Vincent's de Paul soup van out of Footscray, which set a good baseline for me. So as I got older, doing the philanthropic works by going to, as you mentioned, with Project Gen Z to Cambodia for the last 13 years. I was telling someone about it literally yesterday. They're like, "Oh, I love the stuff that you do over in Cambodia." And I said, it's the best drug you'll ever take. That's the reality. Like the feeling you get from it, and the nourishment you get, it's like it just takes you on another level. And I actually told these two ladies a story. I said, "Are you open to a bit of a tough story about?" Because they're like, "What do you guys do over there?" And tell me about it. And I said, "Well, all these children are rescued from child prostitution and begging circles. A large percentage of them. A lot of them are abandoned by their parents on the in front of a police station or a hospital as babies, and then they're brought to Sunrise, Cambodia." And I was telling him the story of when I first went, Michael. And when I first went, we went on this Sunrise bus. They've got a new bus now, thank God. But 13 years ago, they had this old bus that Geraldine Cox had inherited from, someone in Australia. That's nice. They donated, but it had no air conditioning. That back then, Michael, I was like 140 kilos as well back then. So I was a big guy, big beard. I had this little 49 kilo, beautiful blonde Croatian girlfriend who was next to this big 140 kilo guy. So we get off this bus. I'm sweating bullets from head to toe, and we get to Sunrise, Cambodia for the first time. And this beautiful little boy, and I'll leave his name out for anonymity. This beautiful little boy comes up, and he basically puts his arms up like this. And we'd been given briefings on being respectful, and obviously you got to get a working with children's card and all that sort of jazz, and then police checks. And they're like, "Don't go in the orphanage or in Sunrise anywhere where people can't see you. They're going to want to show you where their dormitories, but just tell them you can't. They have to stay in the public area and so forth. And obviously just be respectful about how much affection and touching goes on, which is understand this is all things that are very important." So this little 5-year-old kid who's just stunning, by the way, these big brown eyes, beautiful little hair, looks up at me and he puts his arms up. So what do? I pick him up. And I pick him up, and they were going to put on a performance for us in the main hall. So I'm sort of carrying him like I would carry one of my goddaughters, or I've got 8 goddaughters and one of my nieces, or my own son. And we're walking in, and I'm at this point just dripping with sweat. Like my shirt's fully just full of sweat now. And he grabs his forearm here, Michael, right? And he goes like this. He wipes my brow like this with his own arm, all right, and wipes my sweat off. And then he rubs it on his own t-shirt. And I said, "Oh, that's so cute." And I saw it as this beautiful act of selflessness. That's what I saw it as. I said, "Wow, what a beautiful little thing, this little boy." And I felt like my cup was so full. So the next, week, he's following me around 24/7. I have my hair tied up in a bun, and he went and got the girls that he lives with in the orphanage there to tie his hair up like mine, and he's following me around all day. And at the end of the volunteer work we did there with Project Gen Z, we go to Geraldine's house, and he walked, and Geraldine lives behind the orphanage. Hung Sang, the Prime Minister, built her a house to say thank you for her contribution to the children of Cambodia. And I go to Geraldine. I love this one. I want to take him home. And you're not allowed to, by the way. You can't take kids out of Cambodia anymore because they're trying to repopulate after the genocide. But I go to Geraldine. Oh, he hasn't left me alone. He just always wants to give me a hug. And I told her the story about he would wipe my brow. And she said something extremely heartbreaking to me. She said, "Morello, the reason why he's so attached to you and the reason why he's got so much affection for you is that he was rescued from child prostitution. He thinks that's love. Guys that look like you, that are white, with a big beard, that are 140, 130 kilos, he goes, they're the kind of people that raped him." And I was like, wow. And I get shivers up my spine telling that story again now. Right. And every time I have a bad day, over the years, to some respects, Michael, sometimes it's to my detriment because, over the years when relationships have fallen apart and you break up with a girl or she breaks up with you, I remember this girl goes to me, "Why aren't you more upset that we broke up?" And I said, "Because I go to Cambodia and work with kids that are rescued from child prostitution. You and I breaking up, living on Bondi Beach, driving around in BMWs and eating $500 dinners is not the end of the world. It's sad that the relationship's breaking up, but put life into perspective. Put stress into perspective. Be humble. Be appreciative of what God's giving you or the universe is giving you. Take that and give back to the world."
Yeah. It's like I said in my keynote, the common trait for all high achievers is giving. Like it's where fulfillment comes from. If we take like it's the yin yang balance of the universe. Like if we're taking and not giving back, then
Yep.
we're not going to feel that fulfillment. I personally like over. I mean, even periods where I went through like gym lockdowns and I had to make 15 grand to pay staff and I had no money coming in. I had to figure out how to make 15 grand in 2 weeks. Like I still figured out a way to support like all of Newcastle.
Yeah.
Started a fitness challenge that they could do at home to help people with mental health. That went sort of
Mm.
viral all over the internet and like we were in the papers and all that sort of stuff. And the one thing I love about like my gym's like my little family. Like I don't work there anymore. I've got a team, like a whole team that runs it, but we've always given back to like the community or given back to charities. Like well, there's $75,000 or more just from the gym.
Amazing.
And I think it's just something that, I don't know, like it doesn't matter how much you succeed, those moments with my main going to get pancakes and the memories and the things you give back are the things you're going to remember on your deathbed.
100%, 100%. And that's the things I remember with my dad. Like, I'm sure there was plenty of times he yelled at me to go to bed, but the memories that are fond are the memories like that, which is a beautiful thing.
Well, I got one more question before we jump into the famous rapid fire
Right.
question. So, Morello, at the Entourage, you've helped entrepreneurs build scalable, meaningful businesses.
Yes.
What traits do you see in founders who achieve both financial success and fulfillment?
A great question, Michael, and it ties. I didn't even realize you were even going to ask that question, but it ties exactly into what we just spoke about just then. Like I look at the community of 6-figure businesses going to 7-figure businesses going to 8 and beyond that we've got now. We've even got some that are in the 9-figure period as well now, and I look at the most successful ones, and I'm not talking just successful financially, because like when people come to us at the Entourage, I find they probably come for one of 3 reasons. The first group come for lifestyle, the second group come for scalability. Like, I've got 3 locations, I want to be 30 locations over the next 10 years. How do I do that? And then the third group are often they want to sell. So I've been doing this for 20 years. But the interesting thing about you look at like what is the particular trait that all the successful ones have, whether it's financially successful or mentally and emotionally successful, is they're heart-centered and they're values-driven, right? So like I look at anyone who I've seen go through the Entourage and have tremendous success is they've always made financial decisions with good ethics, morals, and values, and they've always given back to the world, coming from heart-centered decision-making process, right? So it's like, I think if you put that first, if you make sure that every decision you make is heart-centered and values-driven, you will naturally have to become successful. Because it's like I'm a prime example, right? I know I'm polarizing. I've worked with a high performance psychologist before, and she goes, Morello, you realize you're polarizing, yeah? I said 100%. And I've had John McGrath tell me this. I've had Mark Bouris tell me this. And the good news is my polarization is probably 80-90% positive, but like the 10 or 20% is really negative. And like one day I wanted to understand the psychology, my ego got in the way. Why doesn't this person like me? And it was funny because this particular person, this was the Yellow Brick Road days too. I just finished being on TV and winning the Apprentice, and I thought I was a rock star. I just bought my place in Bondi on the beach. So it was my ego. And they gave me that feedback. They said, one, I think you're cocky and you're egotistical, and they weren't wrong in hindsight. Like I've done a lot of work on ego death now. But interestingly enough, this particular gentleman said, I don't need to like you to respect and appreciate you, right? He goes, I see how much you do for people. I see how hard you work. I see that your intentions are pure. It just doesn't resonate with me, right? And it was an interesting thing because then I realized it's the same thing with the entrepreneurs at the Entourage. If they always make a decision with that's heart-centered and values-driven, somebody doesn't necessarily need to agree with the decision you've made or the choice that you've made or the option that you're going down, but they can't ever say that you weren't, that you forewent on your values, right? So like they might say, look, I don't necessarily agree with the way you've done this, but you did stick to your guns and it's what you believe in. And, I don't have to agree with it, but I believe in the fact that you're going to make a good decision for yourself, which is interesting.
I think just to finish that one off, like as we know, not like when we climb to the top, no one's ever going to like everything we do.
Correct.
It's people that they don't understand it. They don't understand you. So they get defensive towards it. You know what I mean? You see that time and time again. Andrew, I'm going to jump into the rapid fire questions because
I'm excited about these, Michael. I'm excited about these.
These are the famous podcast questions. So first one, what's the most important lesson you've learned as a high achieving entrepreneur?
More is lost with indecision than wrong decision.
What daily habit has the biggest impact on your productivity?
Meditation and living in gratitude. So whether that's a prayer for gratitude or a thought process or a little meditation.
If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Mark Bouris always used to tell me, play to your strengths, but work on your weaknesses. I probably didn't work enough on my weaknesses when I was younger, and I was a bit of a one-trick pony. I always stuck to what I was good at.
Good advice. What's the best investment you've ever made in your business?
Myself. Like I know that might sound a little bit egotistical, arrogant, but I've probably spent $500,000 on personal and professional development. I think invest in yourself, number one, guys. Like go get mentors, coaches. Go do Tony Robbins. Go, I spent $30,000 meeting Deepak Chopra for 3 days. Invest in yourself is number one.
Just a quick one on that. Like, if you ever ask anyone in the entourage or any business owner, if you say, "Are you your business?" they would say yes. You operate your business. So investing in yourself is the best answer.
Number one.
How do you handle stress and stay focused under pressure?
I live my life in gratitude, number one, but two, I use the memory anchor of the philanthropic work that I do. So if I ever feel like I'm getting anxiety and I'm getting overstressed, I might go for a walk, around the streets or down by the water. And I just think about, doesn't matter how bad my day is, my day's never going to be as bad as what those kids have gone through.
And what's one book or resource you'd recommend to inspiring leaders?
The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I read it as an 18-year-old. I try and read it every year to second year. It's an easy read if you're not a big reader. You can also download it as an audio book, but try and read it because it's fantastic.
And I guess for me, the next time I see you, the last question, what's your drink of choice?
Simple one for me. Everybody knows, short glass full of ice, lots of Jameson. So that's just straight as it is. That's how I like it, Michael.
I like it. Well, next time I see you in Sydney, we'll definitely go out and I like to have a whiskey as well. So,
I'm pretty sure I got a bottle in the bar here. So don't worry, just come to the office and it's all sorted. There you go.
Andrew, I wanted to sort of end just by saying, firstly, gratitude. I'm so humbled to have just getting to know you today more on this podcast. I actually had tingles going through my body.
Amazing.
Like you were talking about your son and the stuff you've done in the past. Just makes me more of a fan. So I appreciate you for coming on today and I appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Michael. Look, if there's anything we can ever do to help, obviously, if anyone wants to connect as well, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or LinkedIn or anything like that. But anything we can do to help, the elite community and hopefully this time next year, we're in the US together doing something over there.
Thank you for tuning in today, and I hope you found the discussion useful. Our goal is to positively impact the well-being of 1 million people's lives just like you by sharing the experience and knowledge of some of the world's top performers. So you don't miss out on any key strategies to help you succeed, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. And if you think you may know someone that would benefit from this episode, join us in our mission of impacting 1 million lives and share it with your friends.